He'll be taken immediately to a booking room, and a very historic booking will be made. Next, into an ID room, where he'll be photographed and fingerprinted. And then representatives of the press will have their first opportunity for a real front-to-front confrontation. Now, our big television cameras can't fit in that room. We'll shoot that on sound film, and just as soon as that's processed, you'll be able to see it. After the press has its time with Oswald, he perhaps will be given a set of prison clothing, or he may be allowed to retain his own. And then he'll be brought to a cell. It'll probably be a special cell about 10 feet by 10 feet with a steel cot, a wash basin. That's about all. There's a possibility, only a possibility, that that cell may have a window giving out on the assassination site. This is Paul Good returning you to WFAA.
And we are still standing by, awaiting on the movement of the prisoner Oswald. We still have ABC's Bill Lord on the phone from City Hall. So, once again, Bill Lord, what is the situation at ABC's at the City Hall?
Well, Bob, we are waiting and waiting. It is anticipated that he will be moved because extreme precautions have been taken. As I said before, the police are worried. They are so worried they've talked about the possibility of moving him in an armored vehicle, not just the normal sheriff's vehicle. And when this arrives, we'll know that this is the cue for Mr. Oswald to be brought downstairs and transferred to the car.
Bill, what about the arm precaution down there? Are there weapons visible?
There are many weapons visible. Riot guns and rifles are on display. The officers have them in their hands. They are ready to prevent anything they possibly can. There are perhaps 200 or 300 people outside the City Hall waiting to see the transfer of Oswald.
All right, very good, Bill. Thank you very much. Bill Lord, ABC, standing by at City Hall. And now I think once again we'll go down to the county jail, and where Roger Sharp is standing by outside. Roger?
Outside of the county courthouse here, in the distance, some 300 feet from where I am standing, the area directly adjacent to the assassination point, the park area where during the past 24 hours numerous floral wreaths have been laid by various Dallas citizens and organizations. The first floral arrangement was placed early yesterday morning by a lone man, Mr. Henry Stanton, who placed the flowers there in memory of the president with a simple inscription, a simple card saying, "We are all so sorry." Since that time, numerous people have come by. Numerous people have shown their... In the background, a police ambulance moving by, heading out of the city, perhaps to the Parkland Hospital area. Traffic still heavy here. The crowd growing by several hundred as the day wears on. A very curious crowd, some carrying cameras, all waiting and waiting for Lee Harvey Oswald. Now back to Bob Walker at the FAA studios.
Governor John Connolly's condition continues to be improved this morning at Parkland Hospital. The governor, of course, riding in the car with his wife and the president and Mrs. Kennedy last Friday and was painfully wounded. He is expected to remain at the hospital for another 10 to 14 days, but we understand that he will direct the affairs of state government from his hospital bed. His right arm is in traction, but he will sign official documents with his left hand. We've also been informed that John Connally III will be the official representative, that's the governor's son, of the state of Texas at the funeral of President Kennedy tomorrow. Mrs. John Connally, who has been at her husband's bedside since he was shot last Friday, is at the hospital and is making a statement to the press sometime this morning. This will be her first statement and the first word officially from the Connally family since the incident occurred. That's all we have from Dallas right now. This is Bob Walker at WFAA-TV, and now back to ABC News in New York.
The situation very obviously tense and wrought in Dallas. Homicide Captain Will Fritz there of the Dallas Police Department said of Oswald, "This man killed the president." So even the police are standing up on this thing. Curry said last night, "We had this case in good shape this morning, and it is even stronger tonight." District Attorney Henry Wade said yesterday he's confident of getting the death penalty for Oswald, adding that he will be tried first, probably in mid-January, over the death of the president. Both Curry and Fritz said that they had evidence which they were not revealing at this time and probably would not make it public until the trial. As the Oswald case develops, and as that armored vehicle approaches, we will, of course, immediately switch to Dallas for that story. Now, a longer look at events. In the small college community of Williamstown, Massachusetts, some reflections from the historian who wrote the president's autobiography. Professor James McGregor Burns, who teaches political science at Williams College, is interviewed by ABC's Ed Jones.
Professor Burns, you knew President Kennedy as well, if not considerably better than most, both as his biographer and as a close personal friend before and after his election to his high office. How would you gauge him as a human being, in human terms?
He was just a wonderful human being. He never let being president or being senator early give him a kind of a heavy, ponderous manner. He remained a very friendly, engaging, likable person with a very nice, easy air to him to the end. Just a wonderful human being.
He was an immensely popular man. I'm sure that he'll probably be ranked as one of the most popular in the history of our country. Why do you suppose he had so much difficulty in using this popularity to get things done in Congress?
Because he was dealing with people who may have liked him personally, as many of the congressmen do, but who simply disagreed with him. And the reason they disagreed with him is that they were representing a very different constituency from the national constituency. He was speaking for the whole nation, or at least for a large majority of it, I'm sure. And many of them, especially these committee chairmen, speak for very small constituencies and often rather rural, conservative areas, and hence they just didn't go along with the president.
Well, not so much on an individual president to congressman basis, but why do you suppose he wasn't able to marshal this public opinion, this popularity to some purpose?
Well, one reason is that he never really had the chance. He won a very narrow victory in 1960. He presented his programs to Congress year after year. Congress stymied his program year after year. I think if he had been able to go to the people in 1964, he would have shown that the people were behind his program, and perhaps then he would have had a chance to get the program through. But he never was given that opportunity.
Professor Burns, President Kennedy, when he first went into office, had a highly publicized and very well organized congressional liaison staff that was supposed to be really pushing things and getting things done. Do you think he was able to use political pressure to get things done?
Yes, I think he used pressure and bargaining and maneuvering the way practically all presidents have done. It just wasn't enough. These traditional methods, which I think Larry O'Brien and others in the White House used very expertly, simply were not enough to shorten the gap between the president and Capitol Hill. The reason for that, I think, is that this opposition in Congress is not just the attitudes of a few committee chairmen. It goes deep down into the congressional districts, gerrymandered districts. It goes into the way Congress operates. I think Congress is proving itself simply to be way behind the times. And I was very impressed, you know, the way the president tried to deal with Congress. He was a very nice guy when it came to Congress. He didn't get mad. He didn't yell and shriek and scream. He was just the kind of decent person he is. He would accept his defeats on Capitol Hill and say, well, I'll be coming back and asking for it again. When he finally realized a few days before his death that his two big bills, tax and civil rights, would not go through in '63, he said, well, we'll hope for it in the early months of '64. Some feel that he should have banged the table and denounced Congress the way Truman did and the way Roosevelt did. I think he should have, in terms of the '64 election. That is, I think he should have and would have made an issue of Congress in the '64 election. But that time hadn't come yet. He had to wait and raise these issues in the spring and summer and fall of '64. He chose to go along to try to show that he would work with Congress, he'd accept his defeats and try to get what he could out of Congress. And unhappily, this is one of the great tragedies of his death, aside from the terrible personal aspect of this, he never had a chance to go to the people. I'm sure if he had, he would have had a mandate. I hope he would have won a Kennedy Congress, but that just all remains speculation now.
How would you gauge President Kennedy in a historical sense?
I think that he'll be rated as a great president to the extent that historians will think less of his short 3 years, less of the fact that he was a short-term president, and more of the kind of man he was and the kind of program that he was presenting to the American people, and above all, how effective he was in helping to stabilize the international situation. I hope that there won't be such serious crises in the years ahead that we'll forget how serious the crises were in these 3 years and how magnificently the president handled them, with the exception of the Bay of Pigs, from which he frankly said he learned a great lesson. He has been brilliant in his dealing with these tough, ceaseless problems that keep flooding into the White House. So that I hope he gets his due recognition on that score. The tragedy is, on this question of Kennedy's place in history, that history tends to give great credit to the successful presidents, and success has been interpreted, again, on the basis of how much of the program went through Congress. This is true of Roosevelt, it's true of Wilson, it's certainly true of the Democratic presidents. And again, he will not look so good in history in terms of that program, but again, let me say that I think this was not his fault, but the fault of Congress. If people will look at what he asked for and how well he asked for it, how magnificently he articulated the needs of the people and his programs, then I think he'll get the place in history that he deserves.
The title of your biography of then Senator Kennedy was a political biography. What shade of politician was President Kennedy? Was he a liberal or a conservative?
He was a moderate liberal, what I call a bread and butter liberal, all his life. By that I mean he was a man who believed in the economic proposals and reforms of the New Deal and the Fair Deal, Social Security and old age pensions and wages and hours and that kind of thing. I think he became a different kind of liberal. He remained a bread and butter type liberal, but he became also a liberal who believed in what has been described as a qualitative liberalism, not just a quantitative matter of improving wages and that sort of thing, but improving the whole style of our national life, particularly in the civil liberties area. And
Reflections from the historian who wrote the president's autobiography, the late president's autobiography, Professor James McGregor Burns, a political scientist at Williams College, being interviewed by ABC's Ed Jones. A tribute to John F. Kennedy from American Performing Artists will be presented live by the ABC television network tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for about 2 hours. Frederick March will lead that tribute, and among those who will take part are Marian Anderson, violinist Nathan Milstein, Charlton Heston, Van Heflin, Kirk Douglas, Sidney Blackmer, Florence Eldridge, and Isaac Stern, and many others. Top Republican and Democratic members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee said today that they would favor an early exploratory meeting between President Johnson and Soviet Premier Khrushchev. Senators J. William Fulbright of Arkansas, the committee chairman, and Bork Hickenlooper of Iowa made those statements on a program earlier with Howard K. Smith, whom we will join right now in Washington.
Within the hour, the funeral procession carrying the casket of the late president will begin to leave the White House. Preparations there have been completed, so we go now to the White House. Bill Lawrence reporting.
The White House announced just moments ago that Mrs. Jacqueline Kennedy will march in the funeral procession tomorrow as the body of her husband, the assassinated president, is carried from the White House to St. Matthew's Cathedral for the funeral mass. Officials recall no precedent for a First Lady marching in the cortege that carried her husband to his final resting place. The plan now is to move the president's body in less than an hour from here to the Capitol, where it will lie in state all through the night and into tomorrow morning with no restrictions on the viewing hours by the general public. Then tomorrow morning, the cortege again will move to the White House and will pause here, and then Mrs. Kennedy and the Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, the president's brother, will lead the mourners behind the caisson carrying the president's body. Following them will be the chiefs of state, including men like President de Gaulle, Chancellor Erhard of Germany, the prime ministers of Britain, of Canada, of Japan, and many, many other countries. Then the Chief Justice, then the two former presidents, Truman and Eisenhower. They will march to St. Matthew's for the Mass. This is Bill Lawrence at the White House.
A short report now on the activities of the new president. Before leaving his home this morning, President Lyndon Johnson met with Central Intelligence Agency Director John McCone and with President Kennedy's chief advisor, MacGeorge Bundy. Later in mid-morning, Johnson left his home with members of his family and some official aides. He was on his way to religious services. Here you see his car and cortege going to church, where he was greeted by the minister of the church, which is St. Mark's Episcopal Church. The body of the late president will rest tonight in the rotunda of the Capitol, and now for a report from the Capitol, we go there. John Rolfson reporting.
Here on the Capitol Plaza, where the president's body and cortege will arrive in less than 2 hours, many thousands of people are gathering, waiting. Some have been here all night. Some have arrived far before dawn this morning. They will have some time to wait. Once the cortege arrives here and everyone is in position, there will be a 21-gun salute, and at the same time, the band will sound ruffles and flourishes, followed by Hail to the Chief. And then, to the strains of a hymn, the president's body will be carried inside. Once inside, there will be a ceremony to which something has been added this morning. There will be 3 speakers. Short eulogies will be delivered by the Chief Justice of the United States, Earl Warren, by Senator Mike Mansfield, the Democratic leader of the Senate, and by John McCormick, the Speaker of the House. These 3 eulogies to be delivered during the ceremonies inside the rotunda before the public is allowed to view the president's casket. This is John Rolfson, ABC at the Capitol.
The procession will begin in the hour, and when it begins, we'll be back here from Washington. For now, we return you to Bob Young of ABC News in New York.
And before that procession begins and before ABC News coverage of it, we will have services from the Fort Worth Broadway Baptist Church, Fort Worth, Texas. This is Bob Young reporting.
ABC's regular commercial program will remain suspended until further notice because of this period of national mourning. We pause now for 5 seconds for station identification.
Hello, I'm Murphy Martin in New York. Texas Governor John Connally, who was seriously wounded by gunfire during the assassination of President Kennedy, as you heard earlier, is reported to be in an improved condition today in a Dallas hospital. Hospital officials there say Governor Connally spent a restful night without sedation and that the governor's doctors are pleased with his progress. It was also announced today that the Texas governor's 17-year-old son, John Connally III, will represent his father at Mr. Kennedy's funeral services, along with Lieutenant Governor Preston Smith and other Texas figures. When the funeral service is held tomorrow, a military tradition that began a millennium ago will carry on into that service. The black horse, riderless and in trappings of black, will trail the 7-horse caisson bearing the body of the president. Military historians believe the custom of the riderless horse in the funeral of a warrior began as far back as the time of Genghis Khan. It is based in the primitive belief that if the horse ridden by the fallen leader were sacrificed, the spirit of the horse would follow its master to the hereafter. And now to Dallas.
From Broadway Baptist Church in Fort Worth, Texas, the American Broadcasting Company joins with the nation in observing a memorial service for the late President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. The Reverend Dr. J.P. Allen, minister of the church, will officiate.
Have mercy on me, O God, according to thy steadfast love. According to thy abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. The sacrifice acceptable to God is a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart, O God, thou wilt not despise. For thou art our God, we are the sheep of thy pasture. And in that sense of implicit trust, O God, we and the people of this nation turn to thee as despairing children often turn to their own parents. Bind, we pray, the wounds which have been caused in the heart of the nation. Let thy special blessing abide upon the family of the slain president, upon the family and the administration of our new president. And grant, O God, that in a time of national crisis and emergency, that the vision of thy people's eyes may be so clarified that they may distinguish the blessing which can come out of any situation in which the grace of God has action. Hear us, we ask in the name of Christ our Lord. Amen.
Bob Walker, WFAA-TV, Dallas, Texas, interrupting. There's been a shooting at Dallas Police Station as Oswald was being transferred. For details, Bill Lord, ABC at City Hall. Bill.
Just 1 minute ago, they were bringing Oswald out. He had apparently changed clothes. He was just going out the door, heading towards the armored car, and there was a bang. We believe it was a shot. And apparently, what has happened to him, we do not know at the present time. Policemen rushed to the scene, attempting to ascertain what had happened. Photographers were taking pictures. Is there someone down on the floor over there? Is there someone injured down on the floor? Apparently, Oswald is the word we get, but this is unconfirmed because no one can really see what has happened. There was a shot, one shot, and everyone here jumped to see what had happened. Apparently, Oswald was shot by a small elderly man. An elderly man with a small revolver. Where I'm standing...
How far are you away, Bill?
I'm about 20 feet away from apparently where Oswald is. If this is Oswald down on the floor, I cannot see him. There's a bench in between me. But they are examining a man who was on the floor, and the police look very concerned at this moment. The report is that an elderly man with a small revolver. Again, I caution that this I did not see, but these are the reports. There is someone down on the floor. A detective put his hand up on his forehead, shaking it. Oh, no, this has happened. There are 2 men down, apparently, but only one shot was fired. Can we get confirmation? Is that Oswald? They saw Oswald lying on the floor. He is injured. They're taking him back upstairs now. His shirt is ripped open.
Can you tell where he was shot, Bill?
No, we cannot tell that. No, we're not sure if that was Oswald. They believe that might have been the man who did the shooting. His shirt is ripped apart. Oswald is on the floor. He is surrounded by sheriffs, by plainclothesmen, detectives, by policemen of every description, reserve officers. What was feared might happen actually apparently has happened here in Dallas. Oswald is shot, according to a police spokesman. How serious is the injury? The man who apparently did the shooting had white hair, an elderly short man, and he's slightly stout. He was stout, and they took him upstairs to the 5th floor to the jail.
Any word on where the bullet may have entered Oswald, Bill?
No, we don't know his condition. Can you find out his condition? Just how serious is this? Oswald clutched his side as he went down. The report is that he's bleeding, and the Dallas police officials here have a terrible look on their face. What they feared most has apparently happened.
Bill, any more at all, can you describe what the man looked like that was taken away, the man that apparently shot him?
I just got a brief look at him. He had gray hair, stout. He had a white shirt on, and this had been ripped open, perhaps in the scuffle as the police grabbed him. How this man got down here under these security precautions, I do not know. They were clearing newsmen out of the way, and Dallas police have been very cooperative with us. An ambulance is apparently being brought up. Hold on just a moment, please.
Bill Lord is...
They're bringing an ambulance in now. They're bringing a stretcher in, and I hope to be able to get a look at Oswald when they take him out.
Oswald being taken out by
All
ambulance.
right, now, they're picking him up. They've got him on the stretcher. It's now 11:24 here in Dallas. He's being wheeled out. It apparently looks like he was shot on the lower left side. He's being put in a police ambulance. Going in the ambulance now. If you could possibly see the expression on the policemen's faces here, you wouldn't believe it. There had been so much preparation on this, and if they feared anything, they certainly didn't fear that it would happen here in the police station. It happened in the police station in the basement. They were afraid of the route taking him 1 mile from here to the county courthouse.
Yes, because they, you were saying earlier, Bill, they even were talking about putting him in an armored car for that route.
Yes, they were worried, so worried about him that they were going to take an armored car and transfer him. And the armored car had apparently been brought out. I saw him come down the elevator. There were sheriffs with, and the sheriffs were wearing Texas 10-gallon hats. They were walking past me, and he came out the door.
He and a police officer both have been shot. There too. Yeah, and their report is also that it's a man in a black hat. That's all the information we have. Black hat? Black hat. That's all. Man? Don't know. I couldn't tell you. So this man, whoever's got the TV coverage here, will have more of it now, because it's coming direct right over the TV, live from the scene. Bill, on who's covered the city has never been. He has not been delivered to me yet. Still out one of the city. Where? In the basement, I understand. Are they bringing the apartment? They bring all prisoners down from the. Yeah, they're
jail down in that little room in the basement, right?
They're now loading him in an ambulance up there. So the TV man said just a minute ago.
I understand, Roger, that the ambulance is going to be coming down Elm Street over there. In the meantime, why don't we stop?
It'll come Elm.
Down
It'll come Main. If the ambulance comes Main, it'll make a right turn here and go that way.
All right. Hundreds gathered here along Houston Street let out a cheer indicating the passion of the moment in Dallas. Let's go around the other side of the truck here, along Elm Street, where the... Yeah, if he doesn't, he will come down Main and might come up that way. There's some people that talk to right there. I don't need this if this one's working. Is this one working? But you haven't got much cable. That's it.
To give an official statement very shortly on the third floor. But repeating what happened, Lee Oswald has been shot. He was shot inside the Dallas police station in the basement as they were taking him out to put him in a car. Report from ABC's Bill Lord says that Oswald was shot in the lower left side. They have apprehended the man that they think did the shooting, an elderly, stodgy man. He was taken immediately away from the scene. Immediately, of course, several policemen gathered around the fallen figure of Oswald. It is not known his condition, of course, or anything about him at this time, other than that he is en route by ambulance to Parkland Hospital. Possibly will use the same route that President Kennedy was used last Friday when Oswald assassinated him. He was shot 2 miles from where he shot President John F. Kennedy. So this unexpected, fantastic thing that has just occurred here in Dallas again, Lee Oswald, a man charged with the assassination of John F. Kennedy, has himself just been shot, and he has been shot inside the Dallas City Jail on the lower floor as they had just taken him out, and this occurred an hour and a half after they thought they would get him out. They were taking him downstairs, putting him in a sheriff's car for transport some 2 miles away to the county jail. He had just passed ABC's Bill Lord. Just a moment. Yes?
Oswald has just been shot. Jack Ruby is supposed to have shot.
Yes, we know that.
Okay, I'm down here covering it.
All right. A report from one of our ABC News cameramen that he is shooting film down there at the scene. And as we were saying, Oswald now is en route to Parkland Hospital, and we'll get a condition report or something, of course, as soon as possible. Our ABC remote truck is down at the county jail. They were just getting ready to shoot the arrival, naturally, take pictures of the arrival of Oswald as he was being transported over. It's an amazing thing because all we heard this morning from Bill Lord at City Hall and Roger Sharp and Paul Good at the county jail was that the extreme security and caution taken on this thing was unreal almost, that this was a part of our city almost under siege. There were volunteer policemen, regular policemen, all on duty, as Bill Lord reporting to you, with weapons drawn. And they were ready to do everything in their power to guard this man, because this was the one thing they did not want to happen. Here is a man charged with murder of the President of the United States, and now he himself has been shot. We do not know his condition. He was shot in the lower left side. We do know that the shooting occurred inside the city jail of Dallas before he could be placed in a car and transported to the county jail. Report we have from Bill Lord was that the shooting was probably done by an elderly man, a short, stodgy man, or that's the best description that Bill could get. Bill was in a phone booth, and Oswald passed right by him as he was being escorted to the police vehicles for transportation to the county jail. Bill saw Oswald coming down the hall. He walked right by him. Oswald was wearing different clothes than he was wearing yesterday, as Bill Lord reported earlier. And as he got just outside in this basement area to be placed into a car, all of a sudden a shot rang out. And as Bill screamed and told you, there's been a shooting, and we had to wait for 10, 15, 20 seconds to find out what had happened, who had been shot. And then the thing that everybody had feared had occurred, that he had been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot in the Dallas City Jail and is now en route to Parkland Hospital, and we'll have to await further condition reports. Bill Lord now has gone up to the third floor at the city jail for a statement from Chief of Police Jesse Curry, and of course we're just going to have to wait now for statements from both places to find out exactly what has transpired, who did the shooting, and the condition of Oswald at Parkland Hospital, and we'll try to find out as soon as we possible all of these things. But again, repeating, you know, this anybody who entered today, anybody who entered the city hall supposedly was supposed to have received the express permission of Dallas Police Chief Jesse Curry. That was a word we had. And this is a thing that everyone is wondering right now. How did this man get inside the police station? But there he was, inside the police station. A shot rang out. Oswald slumped over, clutching his left side, was put on a stretcher, placed in an ambulance, and rushed to Parkland Hospital. And probably that ambulance is there right now. And now, for further details, we are taking you to the county jail, standing outside Roger Sharp.
Here outside of the courthouse, where a crowd of several hundred had gathered, awaiting the arrival of Lee Harvey Oswald. 10 blocks away at City Hall, that arrival stopped by apparently a bullet. This crowd, when word flashed through the crowd that Oswald had been shot, broke out into a cheer. The crowd has been dispersing for the past 5 minutes, many of them just getting the news. What's your reaction to hearing that suspect Oswald has been shot down?
Well, I can't hardly say what right now, but I think that people wanted a quick decision on his execution and get him put away.
Do you think that was the right justice for him?
Well, I think he should have been tried, but people sometimes take the law in their own hand on a thing like this.
Young man, how do you feel about it?
Well, I don't think anything can be too bad for him, and maybe trial wouldn't have done anything different. He would have been shot anyway.
What about you, Cameron?
Well, maybe the Lord wanted it this way, and maybe he didn't. Maybe this is the best thing for him, I guess. Or maybe it's not. My opinion.
Ma'am, how do you feel about the shooting of Oswald?
Well, I just feel like this is too good for him. I think he should have had a trial. And I think he should have suffered more than what he has suffered now. And longer.
Were you drawn out here today by the prospect of getting a good look at him? Was that why you were here?
No, we just came down to see where the president was shot.
How do you feel about it now?
Well, I'm just real sad.
Sir, what is your reaction to what has happened this morning at City Hall?
Well, I think he got what he deserved if he's the one that did it.
Had you come down here to see him yourself?
No, I'm waiting for a train at 1 o'clock, and I just happened to stroll down to see the scene of the accident. I've walked down through here many times, Cleveland, Ohio.
Thank you very much, sir. As you can see, a crowd genuinely not very sorry that Oswald has been the victim of an assassin himself. The crowd here agreeing that there should have been a trial, but apparently there is a sentiment, as evidenced by the cheer that did ring out when the word was flashed. The scene here of anticipation has quieted now, and the scene is much different. This is Roger Sharp on Houston Street, directly opposite the Dallas County Courthouse.
And that's the latest word. Lee Oswald has been shot, been rushed to Parkland Hospital. He was shot inside the Dallas City Jail. Condition is unknown. We will report to you when we have further details from either location. Now we return you to our regularly scheduled programming.
What God has appointed, and those who resist will end.
The report from Dallas that Lee Harvey Oswald was shot as he was being transferred from the Dallas City Jail, which is surrounded by Main Street, Commerce Street, and Harwood, and he was about to be transported some 15 or 16 blocks, roughly a mile, to the Dallas County Jail. And as we await further reports, it might be interesting to do a resume on the evidence that law enforcement officers had gathered against Lee Harvey Oswald. Some of the physical evidence: Oswald's wife says he owns a rifle similar to the one used by the assassin. Oswald bought a rifle for $12.78 from a mail order house. The order was in his handwriting. Police have the assassin's rifle, and Oswald's rifle is missing. Police took paraffin tests of Oswald's hands, test proving he had fired a weapon the day of the assassination. Police have photographs of Oswald posing with his rifle and with a pistol, which Oswald allegedly used to kill a pursuing policeman. Oswald, in a letter to then Navy Secretary John Connally, now Texas governor, threatened to use any means to get even for Connally's refusal to change Oswald's dishonorable discharge from the Marines. Connally, now governor of Texas, as we said, was wounded while riding with President Kennedy. Furthermore, Oswald was employed in the building where the sniper hid for the attack, and police have established that he was in the building at the time of the assassination. There is more evidence, enough for local law enforcement officers in Dallas to make the statement that we feel, quote, we have a cinch, end quote. That is the background on evidence gathered against Lee Harvey Oswald, who some 20 minutes ago was shot as he was being transferred from the Dallas City Jail to the Dallas County Jail, a distance of roughly 1 mile. His condition, the extent of the wound, is not known at this time. The only thing, as you heard Bill Lord reporting direct from City Hall in Dallas, was the fact that he was shot in the lower left side. The man who fired the shot, described as being elderly, short, and stocky, fired only one shot. You also saw Roger Sharp of the ABC News staff at the Dallas County Jail, the scene that we were awaiting to see, Oswald's arrival at the Dallas County Jail. Roger Sharp was there, and you saw him talking with Dallas County Sheriff Bill Decker. We will be returning there momentarily as soon as additional details are gathered. Mrs. Jacqueline Kennedy will walk behind the casket of her slain husband tomorrow in the funeral procession from the White House to a cathedral about a half-mile away. This announcement from the White House today. President Johnson, foreign chiefs of state, former presidents Eisenhower and Truman, and other dignitaries will walk behind Mrs. Kennedy and Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, the assassinated chief executive's brother. We'll have more details on this in a moment, but right now, for more details on the shooting of Lee Harvey Oswald, again we go to WFAA-TV in Dallas.
Lee Oswald has just been shot in the basement of the Dallas City Hall in the Dallas Police Station. They were moving him out to take him to the county jail, and what has happened, the greatest fear that the police had had all morning, actually did happen. Somebody fired a shot and struck him in the left side. He was shot 2 miles from the point where he assassinated President Kennedy just 2 days ago. More caution and protection has been used for this man than anything had ever been seen in the city of Dallas, probably more than had been used to protect the President of the United States. In fact, Dallas City Hall is normally a public building, but today it was really under armed guard. Is this a confirmed report as to who did the shooting? Vic Robertson from City Hall reports that Jack Ruby, the owner of the Carousel, which is a bar in Dallas, did the shooting. That's a report from City Hall. Evidently a report taken from that statement that Police Chief Jess Curry was just to give. But Jack Ruby, owner of the Carousel in Dallas, reportedly did the shooting. Repeating and bringing you up to date at approximately 20 minutes past 11 o'clock this morning as Lee Oswald was being moved from the City Hall, from Dallas City Jail to the county jail. He had just passed ABC's Bill Lord, flanked by policemen. The moment he went out of Lord's sight, a shot rang out. Oswald slumped to the ground, and about that time, police grabbed a man, now identified as Jack Ruby of Dallas, ushered him by. Oswald, meanwhile, lying prostrate on the ground, clutching his left side. Oswald then was placed in an ambulance and sped out to Parkland Hospital. And so far, we have no report on his condition from Parkland Hospital. But we do have word that Jack Ruby, the owner of the Carousel in Dallas, was the person who shot Lee Oswald, the man who assassinated President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. There was some talk this morning of taking him in an armored car from the City Hall to the county jail. Whether that was to have been accomplished, we don't know. Bill Lord did not say anything about an armored car, except that he did hear this morning that it had to be carried in a sheriff's vehicle because he was going to the sheriff's jail. However, we do not know if that was to take place because Oswald never did get in the car. He was taken in an ambulance. He has been shot. A wild scene, of course, developed in the basement of the City Hall. At one point, detectives and police officers trying to get the wounded Oswald back into the booking office jammed themselves in the doorway and got stuck. Oswald was dressed in a pair of black trousers, a tan shirt, and black sweater. Oswald made no sound. He fell to the floor, clutching his side below the rib cage. It was not immediately known who the man was. We do have later information that it was Jack Ruby of the Carousel Bar in Dallas. Prior to bringing Oswald to the basement, police, using flashlights, searched the entire area of the basement. Officers with riot guns and rifles were posted throughout the basement area. A one-way drive from the street level to the basement and out the other side of the big square building in downtown Dallas was guarded at each end by uniformed officers. All persons entering the basement area were presumably checked and cleared by the police. All newsmen had been required to show credentials before being allowed into the basement area. In the excitement, with officers running around the basement, small man was hustled into the prison elevator and taken upstairs. Oswald's head wobbled back and forth as the stretcher was slid into the ambulance. An armored car was blocking the way of the ambulance, and it had to be moved. One shot was fired. The shot could be heard plainly. In fact, you may have heard it. I heard it over the telephone. Dallas Sheriff Bill Decker says he understands a police officer has been shot, too, possibly by the same bullet that did strike Oswald. Oswald was the only wounded person, however, brought to the emergency ward at Parkland Hospital. And Police Lieutenant George Butler has identified the man that did the shooting as Jack Ruby, a Dallas nightclub owner. And that's all that we have. That should bring you fairly much up to date. Oswald, repeating, was shot, was put on a litter, was holding his left side. An ambulance apparently had been standing by in case of emergency. It was rushed up and Oswald put into it, taken to Parkland Hospital. He was going in the very emergency entrance out there where the body of President Kennedy was taken earlier and where the president died. Some more details as we have them. Oswald supposedly let out a cry of anguish and grabbed his stomach. It was a gasp. The man did put up a bit of struggle, but officers seized his gun away from him. And we have received word that Oswald is at Parkland Hospital at this time. Dean said, one man up there said that the suspect, Ruby, was mumbling as officers seized him. So far, we do not know the type of pistol that the man used. But, repeating, police have identified the man they seized as Jack Ruby, the owner of the Carousel Lounge, a striptease place on Commerce Street about 4 blocks from City Hall where the shooting took place. Oswald was shot about 2 miles from where he assassinated President John F. Kennedy last Friday, shortly before 1 o'clock Dallas time. An amazing thing that has happened in Dallas this morning. Lee Oswald has been shot. How seriously, we do not know. But he's been taken to Parkland Hospital. Repeating details as we have them, he was shot in the City Hall, in the police station. Supposedly, everybody had been cleared, and supposedly the area was fairly well checked. Dallas police had set up stringent security measures for Oswald's transfer. Of course, the transfer had been announced beforehand to the public, and the time the public was given was 10 o'clock this morning. The actual transfer took place an hour and 20 minutes later. Prior to bringing Oswald to the basement, police using flashlights had searched the entire basement area. Officers with riot guns and rifles were posted throughout the basement area. A one-way drive from the street level to the basement and out the other side was guarded at each end by uniformed police officers. All persons entering the basement area, presumably, had been checked and cleared by the police. All newsmen had been required to show credentials before being allowed into the basement area. In the excitement, with officers rushing around the basement, the man was hustled into the prison elevator and taken upstairs. Oswald's head wobbled back and forth as the stretcher was slid onto the ambulance. An armored car was blocking the way of the ambulance, and it had to be moved. And as far as we can ascertain, only one shot has been fired. Dallas Sheriff Bill Decker says he understands a police officer has been shot, possibly by the same bullet that struck Oswald. However, Oswald was the only wounded person. Yes, Walker. I'm on the network feed now. What? Bob Walker, WFAA-TV Dallas, with further details on the shooting of Lee Oswald. Police have now picked up Jack Ruby, a Dallas nightclub owner. They have identified him as the man that did the shooting. Reconstructing the scene for you best as we can. Oswald was just being taken down by our ABC man, Bill Lord, who was there on telephone at the time. Was going to be placed in an armored car. Definitely now that's been established. An armored car had to be moved before Oswald was taken to the hospital. He had just passed Bill Lord and had turned away from Lord's vision when one shot rang out. Then there was mass confusion for from 10 to 15 minutes. When the scene had cleared, an elderly man had been apprehended by police, taken upstairs in the elevator. Oswald had grabbed his side and had fallen to the floor, uttering a gasp, bleeding profusely from below the left rib cage. Oswald, it was clearly known then, had been shot. and what Dallas police had feared most had occurred. The most stringent security measures had been taken to get Oswald from the city jail to the county jail. In fact, last night there was some speculation as to whether he would be moved at all, but they decided to move him. They made a public announcement that he would be moved at 10 o'clock this morning. It occurred at 11:20 this morning, about an hour and 20 minutes late. But sometime things do not happen. Here is Jim Davidson, ABC News cameraman, who was there when the shooting occurred. Jim, describe what happened.
The transfer was occurring late. There were a number of officers around. There seemed to be unusual security precautions. At the last minute, they moved all of the cameramen outside the area, except for two of us, and we moved back instead of out to the driveway. I made the shot of Oswald coming out of the elevator through the grill work in the sergeant's office, followed him as far as I could, then moved to the glass doorways, and was shooting at the back of the officers surrounding him as they carried him toward moved him toward the car. At that time, a shot rang out. I suppose I was within 10 feet of the man. My camera was rolling, and I was rolling. The officers immediately grouped around Oswald and grouped around somebody else. It was a scuffle. Guns were drawn, and they rushed the man they captured and Oswald back into this office on the basement of the city hall. We backed up into the thing, and I shot through the grill work. I could not see Oswald, but he was surrounded by officers.
Thank you very much. And that's all here. Bob Walker, WFAA-TV Dallas. Now back to ABC in Washington.
And for the story in Washington, we switch there now. This is the scene today at the White House portico, where yesterday the eminent visitors were arriving. Today, the honor guard is awaiting the caisson, which will carry the casket containing the remains of the late president. Here are the horses. 7 horses will draw the caisson. It will be drawing into place now any moment. And the funeral procession will then begin. The penultimate journey of John F. Kennedy. Tomorrow will be the last journey. Oh, somebody's got it. The horses and the caisson are now awaiting the pallbearers who will bring the casket out and place it on the caisson for the funeral procession up the historic route that a little less than 3 years ago John Kennedy took to be inaugurated president. Yesterday this portico was wet and the sky was dark. Today the sky has brightened and Washington has dried. And along the route, crowds have already accumulated. Early this morning, more than 4,000 people were waiting outside the Capitol building where the casket will come to rest. By the time the procession goes, there will be a multiple of that number. These are the huge pillars holding the roof of the portico. And these are the high officers who, with the bodyguard, will follow the casket. This morning, in the East Room of the White House, there was a private mass at the side of the body of the late president for Mrs. Jacqueline Kennedy and other members of the Kennedy family, with no one else attending. That was the last event to take place in the East Room before this one, when the casket will be removed, carried into the hall, out that door, and placed on the caisson. The coffin, as you saw yesterday, is closed, and when it reaches the Capitol Rotunda, it will remain closed in accordance with modern tradition. In former times, the time of Abraham Lincoln, for example, the casket was open. But in modern times, it has become traditional and usual to keep the casket closed, as was the case when King George VI of England several years ago died, and his body lay in state in the magnificent Hall of Westminster, the 1,000-year-old hall, and the public came by to view it. The casket was closed. President Lyndon Johnson did not come to the White House today. He brought the White House to him. MacGeorge Bundy, Kennedy's chief special advisor, and John McCone, the head of CIA, went to the Johnson home in a residential area of Washington, D.C., to brief him, and later today, after the ceremonies that are about to begin, there will be an intelligence briefing again, not in the White House or in the executive office building next door, but in the Johnson home. The only visit to the White House that the President will make today is to come to take part in this funeral procession. The first car following the caisson will contain Mrs. Kennedy and Attorney General Robert Kennedy, the late President's closest confidant. After that, in the next car will come the new President, Lyndon Johnson, and after that, other high officials. None of the eminent foreign dignitaries has arrived yet to take part in this. The Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister of Japan have reached San Francisco, but are not yet in Washington. However, the foreign chiefs of state, chiefs of government, and officials will begin arriving here around 4 to 4:30 this afternoon. The White House portico, crowds visible in the distance on Pennsylvania Avenue. And in a short while, John F. Kennedy will repeat the journey he took almost 3 years ago to be inaugurated, and will go up Pennsylvania Avenue. Kennedy was a great admirer of Franklin D. Roosevelt. He will now follow the penultimate mile that Franklin D. Roosevelt took, and will be dead. These are the 7 horses that will draw the caisson. The order of the procession, after the immediate family of the late president, will be President Johnson, such foreign chiefs of state, heads of government, heads of special delegations as are here. Then the Chief Justice of the United States, Earl Warren. Then the former presidents of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower and Harry Truman, and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court. Next in line will be the members of the cabinet, President Kennedy's cabinet, now President Johnson's cabinet. Then Democratic and Republican leaders of the House and Senate, followed by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and then 11 of the late president's personal assistants. The procession will be preceded by military formations with muffled drums. There will be a group of drummers from each of the services. When the casket arrives and is placed in the Capitol Rotunda, there will be 3 short speeches.